Fasten your seatbelts for the realest Eagles and Sixers YouTuber! One who plays no clickbait and gets to the point! The myth, the legend, Nicky Stees! Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. I'm simply statue think they slate, dropping unrealistic man. 2K takes for the clip. Even though cats like that get views closer to the milli, never hear me preach LeBron to Philly. Before you watch the Eagles all the way through the early 22, authentic talk, forget what others do. Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. The 24/7, 365 way. Sports content for the reals that fill the day. Good afternoon, folks. It is noon Eastern Standard Time. It is your boy Steez here, and we live for episode 45 of the 3-Point Blitz. And we ready to go, folks. Today, here we are. We all set and ready to go. We just finished the conference championship game. Give me 1 second. And here we are. We're back now. Now we ready to begin this bad boy. It's episode 45 of the 3-Point Blitz. And as always, we doing this thing on the Hardcore Sports Network and the Nicky Steez channel. So without any further ado, let's kick this bad boy off. We started off with some breaking news that just came out before we get into the rant of the week. And that's that the Buffalo Bills head coaching search has officially been complete. We talked about this last week when the Bills decided to part ways with Sean McDermott following their loss to the Denver Broncos. And I suggested that they potentially promote head offensive coordinator Joe Brady to the head coach spot, and they ultimately did. It's just been confirmed. There's the link to the article on ESPN and acknowledging that Joe Brady has been promoted to a 5-year deal. So we're going to get into it. Wow, I suggested it's possible they could do that because Brady's been there long enough as the offensive coordinator. He's worked with the offense long enough to at least have the chemistry with Josh Allen. And they made it official. They gave him a 5-year deal. Now, do we know if this will actually work out or not? That remains to be determined. But as of now, Joe Brady has, in the Buffalo Bills' mind, earned the opportunity to become head coach. And I will say this, he's certainly going to be a better head coach than Kevin Patullo was offensive coordinator for the Eagles, based on what we've seen so far, because at least he was a better offensive coordinator over in Buffalo than Patullo was with the Eagles. But now, ultimately, it's a matter to see whether or not Joe Brady can make that next step from being the offensive coordinator to head coach, because now your responsibilities pick up. You go from just overseeing the team's offense and signal calling to actually being the head coach. Much different story. But now the question is, can he make that adjustment? So I think, well, at least we know this. We know the Bills' offense should still be in sync, and they should still be able to be effective with Joe Brady because he's proven himself as offensive coordinator. He's proven that, hey, this guy's proven he can do something and get it done. But now it's just a matter to see. But first, we got to wait through the offseason. What do they do to address their offense and their defense? What about the draft, free agency? We still got to wait and see on that one. But for now, it's just a wait-and-see deal. It's got some promise, but we got to wait and see for the Buffalo Bills how this actually plays out. And while we're still on the subject of new hires, let's talk about two teams in the AFC North real quickly. Most notably, starting with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who hired Mike McCarthy as their new head coach. Mike McCarthy, McCarthy's one of the longer tenured head coaches. This was his first, this was only his second season since 2006 that he wasn't a head coach. He was a year in between after he got let go of the Packers for being the Cowboys coach. This season he was out of coaching, but he'll be back and get his third opportunity with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the team that at the time Green Bay Packers beat in Super Bowl 45 for his Super Bowl trophy. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. Mike McCarthy is the Doc Rivers of NFL head coaches. He's got one championship with a superstar that helped out, but ever since then, he's constantly fell short in the playoffs. That was the story of his Packers run post Super Bowl 45 till he got let go in 2018. And that was his story. There were his first 3 seasons with the Cowboys, or 3 of his first 4 seasons with the Cowboys in that 5-year tenure where they got to the playoffs, ultimately getting bounced in the wild card twice, only having 1 playoff win in that stretch. And ultimately, McCarthy is now going to get his third opportunity with the Steelers. But here's the deal. You're towing from Mike Tomlin, who had a winning record or a 500 record in all every season he had as a head coach. No losing seasons. Now you're going from Mike Tomlin, who did that, to Mike McCarthy, who we see with less talent around him sometimes struggles to get to a 500 or better record. We saw in Green Bay when Rodgers got injured in 2017. After a 4-1 start, they finished 7-9. The following year, they went 6-10. And we saw with the Cowboys, his first year there, they had a 6-10 campaign during that COVID year. In his final season there, they had a below 500 record and missed the playoffs. Now you're talking about a Mike McCarthy who struggles to get to the playoffs or even above 500 when he doesn't have the best talent. Now you're talking about him trying to take over the Steelers. I don't think this is really going to work out as well. Yes, Mike McCarthy has that Super Bowl ring, but if you look closer at his resume, it's not as good as he says. He's one of the most overrated coaches. I don't see this working out. This is just, So good luck with Will Howard. Now, granted, I know Mike McCarthy's credited as an offensive guru, but remember, that mostly came with Aaron Rodgers at his peak. Now, you're going to be talking about him taking over with Will Howard, barring Rodgers deciding to play one more year, possibly. So, we'll have to wait and see on that one. But as far as McCarthy goes, I don't know. Him as a head coach with a raw Will Howard taking over, I don't really think that's going to work out too well. And we got Grego, and there's new accounts stopping by in the chat along with Mitch. Thanks for stopping by, guys. And with McCarthy, this isn't as likely to succeed Mike Tomlin in terms of the Pittsburgh Steelers standard that Tomlin set. Now, for the Ravens, their AFC North rival, they got Jesse Minter from the Chargers, who was the Chargers defensive coordinator, who spent the last 2 seasons under Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh, that is, as the Chargers defensive coordinator. They developed one of the better pass defenses in the NFL the most recent season. Now, for the Ravens, this could help them out, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, which was one of their biggest weaknesses. So there's a lot of potential here for this. So there's potential this could help the defense, but we still got to wait and see with that one. I already talked about that. I feel like Brady's earned the opportunity. Now it's just a matter of seeing what he can do going from coordinator to head coach. And with Jesse Minter's case, speaking of coordinator to head coach, going from Chargers D coordinator to Ravens head coach, we still, again, just like with Joe Brady, got to wait and see what the Ravens do during the offseason. What do they do with free agency and the draft? Now, some people are saying this might be a slam dunk, but we got to wait and see on that one. Time will tell. So we'll just have to say good luck to Jesse Minter and even Mike McCarthy in their respective roles, and as well as Joe Brady. But now getting on to the one thing that's always going to be the same throughout the 3-point blitz. We're going to have a rant of the week, just like on the Pick and Roll podcast. Now, this came after the news that broke yesterday about Shedeur Sanders being a fill-in for the Pro Bowl. This is going to be Mighty interesting, don't you think? Boy. And this is exactly why people have not, for a long time, and will not take the Pro Bowl seriously. Now, to be fair, Shedeur Sanders he's not officially been ruled to participate in the game. He's considered an alternative with the idea that Drake May won't show up for the Pro Bowl, to get ready for the Super Bowl. So Shedeur Sanders, who had more picks than touchdowns, ultimately somehow got selected as a Pro Bowler. Now, look, I get, with guys opting out of the Pro Bowl, particularly Drake May, getting ready for the Super Bowl, you need someone to fill that void. But Jesus Christ, you couldn't have put Aaron Rodgers in there as an alternative, because at least Rodgers did have more touchdowns and interceptions and had a respectable regular season. Granted, his performance in the wild card round was atrocious against the Texans, but I mean, if Rodgers, this really is his last season, at least give him a Pro Bowl nod for having a respectable statistical regular season. Let him go out there, get a few snaps in that flag football game. If that truly is his last down of football, technically his last down of football in the NFL, why not let him go out with a Pro Bowl nod? Granted, it would be as a substitute, but I would have took Aaron Rodgers as a substitute over Shedeur Sanders. Or, I mean, even for maybe other teams I'm thinking about. I understand Bo Nix is injured, so you can't really use him. But if you were going to look for somebody, maybe Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence would have been a great alternative to Drake May in this case, too. Because, yeah, sure, I know Trevor Lawrence. You know what you want to say about Trevor Lawrence being overrated. But, and yes, I know nobody really watches the Pro Bowl, but crap like this, like Shedeur Sanders with more INTs than TDs being an alternative, isn't doing anything to help viewership either. I mean, but this is just only a small part of the reason no one takes the Pro Bowl seriously. And you look at the events they have to offer, there's not really that many interesting events, really, in terms of like skill competitions. And you had the accuracy challenge in the early 2000s, where you tried to throw the ball, not the accuracy challenge, the long distance challenge. You remember guys like Brady, Peyton Manning, Brett Favre would try to throw the ball as far as they could. It was a fun little event they had in the early 2000s, back when it was in Honolulu. Why didn't they just keep that event going? That was actually a little bit fun. Or why not have a kicking contest, a long kicking distance contest? That would at least be interesting. Or do something kind of similar. Take something similar to the mini games in Madden, where a receiver tries to catch as many balls as they can in a minute. Why not do events like that? I mean, that would at least make it a little more interesting. And I feel like with the flag football concept, if you're going to do flag football, this would actually make it interesting and somewhat unique from other sports all-star games. Take guys that are active on one team. Could be guys from both conferences. Then, for the other team, take guys that are recently retired but are still young enough to run in a flag football game. Maybe guys like Larry Fitzgerald or someone like a Tom Brady, or guys like that are no longer in the NFL, like OBJ. Guys that could still play a flag football game. Put them on the opposing team. Have a nice little fun current guys versus past guys flag football game. Obviously, you want to use guys that are more recently retired. You wouldn't want to use John Elway for that game, because how much does John Elway have left even to run? I mean, yeah, remember, this is flag football too. This is not full contact football. So you could still use some of those guys. But, at least as long as it's guys that were former Pro Bowlers during their active career, like a Larry Fitzgerald, and guys like that, or even Cam Newton. That would actually make the game a little more fun in a flag football type of game. Like one team, you could have Tom Brady, Cam Newton be the quarterbacks, or then maybe have some other guys in there, like maybe guys like maybe a Steve Smith Sr. if he could still run in a flag football game, guys like that. Or maybe even get a Dez Bryant in, since, he's probably still young enough to run. And do it that way. That would actually be a fun way to do a flag football game and make it a little bit interesting. I mean, it wouldn't be the best thing in the world, but it would at least be somewhat interesting. You could even throw like a Derek Carr at quarterback because these are guys that are still young. He was a Pro Bowler, and guys that are still young enough to at least make a flag football game somewhat interesting. Like, that's how I would lean to do it. Like, you could use Jason Kelsey in that game, of course, as the center for the retro players. You could even use Amari Cooper, Ndamukong Suh, guys like that. Tyrann Mathieu, Julio Jones. That would actually make it a fun game. Have those guys on one team. On the other team, have guys like Josh Allen or Derrick Henry or guys like that on the other team. Or even, now that Adam Thielen's officially retired, he's a guy you could use in one of those games. And that would actually be fun to watch, at least to some degree, I think. Maybe it wouldn't be the best thing in the world, but it would at least be something different. It might generate some interest in the Pro Bowl. Some, if you're going to go that flag football route. It would be better than guys like Shedeur Sanders or Tyler Huntley getting Pro Bowl nods they had no business getting. But unfortunately, the NFL has decided to water down the Pro Bowl to a point where it's not interesting, where guys with more INTs than touchdowns like Shedeur Sanders can make it. And another thing that's stupid about this, before we do move on, some people are turning this into a pro-Shedeur versus anti-Shedeur discussion. Just stop. This isn't about that. Put aside any pro or anti-Shedeur Sanders bias you have and look at it objectively. In his rookie season, he didn't do enough to make the Pro Bowl. 8 TDs to 10 interceptions isn't it. Now, maybe 1 year or two from now, maybe Shedeur could legit earn a Pro Bowl nod. And if so, hey, let him earn it the legit way. But really, when you're just giving guys with more INTs and touchdowns Pro Bowl nods, that just, in some ways, it takes away from the game, because it's like, hey, if you're popular and you have some highlight reel plays, you can make the Pro Bowl easily. You don't have to actually be good to make the Pro Bowl anymore. And you wonder why no one takes it seriously. And in some ways, it takes away from the game, because some players that are going to get that Pro Bowl nod or get that Pro Bowl game check, now they're not going to have to try as hard to get there, because they know they're going to get it if they just flash some highlight reel plays, and it leads to some players potentially half-assing it. Now you have a long-term problem. So that's with the players actually playing hard, where they feel like they can just do just enough to make the Pro Bowl, but not really truly earn it. And that's a league problem that they're starting to encounter now. So in terms of not only making your all-star game least popular to watch, you're also running into a slight long-term problem where some players may not be as motivated to try as hard. So, but that's the NFL's problem. Until they want to actually take proper steps to address it, they're just going to see the same problem over and over again. So I'll leave it at that. So moving right along to the actual interesting part that people want to listen to. Let's talk about the conference championship games real quick. And for anyone was wondering, were we going to get some snow? Was the snowstorms that have been sweeping the United States over the weekend going to cross over into this game? The answer was yes, particularly in the second half. And ultimately, as expected, the New England Patriots beat the Denver Broncos. Now, this was somewhat of an anticlimactic game, but hey, you know what? It unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. Now, was it an interesting game? Yeah, it was. It was an interesting game, and I give the Denver Broncos credit for at least keeping it competitive. You saw early in the game, they went out there, scored a touchdown, got the first points, and you thought, okay, maybe they could do something. The second offensive drive of the game for the Broncos, they go down the field, 5 plays, get a touchdown. All right. You're thinking we might have ourselves a little bit of something here. You had 152-yard pass to Marvin Mims, then a 6-yarder to Cortland Sutton. The extra point's good. They go up 7-0, and we go into the second quarter. Broncos are up. But then in the second quarter, and looking back, this may have been the one thing that cost the Broncos the game. And what? Breaking news, you got Brian DeBall is now the Titans offensive coordinator. That's going to be an interesting one right there for DeBall. But here's the thing. He's going to have a lot to work with. Now, but then again, we got to see, to be fair, what are the Titans doing free agency in the draft, which is the case for all teams. But the ball as offensive coordinator, it's better than him as the head coach, but the time will tell on that one is all. But all I can say is, well, best of luck to Brian DeBall. And hopefully for him, he does better than he did as head coach of the Giants. And as we're saying, though, back with this game, speaking of offense, the one mistake the Broncos made, they were at the Patriots 14. They tried to go for it on 4th and 1. Stidham tried to throw a short pass to R.J. Harvey, and it was incomplete. And ultimately, the Broncos, they were at the Patriots 14. They had an easier field goal, and this was before the snow really picked up. Now, we don't know if they would have made a kick or not, but they probably should have given it a chance. If they would have made that kick, they would have been up 10-0, and you're talking 10-10. This game may have gone to overtime, which might have given the Broncos a chance, but ultimately, in hindsight, that might have cost them, because then after that, the Patriots score. They do end up taking it to the locker room, 7-7. Now, to be fair, there were 2 missed field goals in this. There was 2 missed field goals from the Broncos, so maybe in hindsight, it wasn't the worst idea in the world to try to go for it. But in the end of the day, the Patriots eventually end up scoring. They end up taking it 7-7 to the locker room. They get a long drive downfield for a field goal to start the second half on the first possession. And that was it as the points go, because then after that, this basically turned into the snow version of the Fog Bowl. And what I mean by that is, if you guys remember the Fog Bowl, Eagles and Bears, most of the points were in the first half when the weather was still somewhat decent outside to play football. Then at halftime, it got real foggy in the second half, pretty much. It became a foregone conclusion the Bears were going to win because they were up at halftime. Kind of similar here. Once the Patriots took the lead and the weather got worse, the wind picked up, the snow was all over the field. Pretty much it was almost all but over at that point. The Broncos did get down the field to try a field goal, but with the weather conditions just being dreadful, the field goal was super duper wide. I mean, this was super, but it was partially blocked. Lutz's field goal was partially blocked by Taylor for the Patriots, and that played a role in it going wide right. Now, honestly, there wasn't a whole lot to take away from just a handful of highlights, like the crazy missed field goal, the weather in the second half being real snowy up at Mile High. I mean, this was an offensive struggle. I mean, now the weather did play a role in it, but at the end of the day, ultimately, the better team won in the Patriots. They had Drake May, who led them to this point starting. You know, Denver Broncos were stuck with Jarrett Stidham, who I think if this injury would have happened to Bo Nix late in the regular season, and Jarrett Stidham at least had time to play a few games, a la Nick Foles, then maybe the Broncos would have had a chance in this situation. But trying to go in a conference championship game against one of the top teams in your conference without Jarrett Stidham having any playing time under his belt, trying to get him ready and being in horrific weather conditions, it just wasn't going to work. It was one of those situations in order to win, like Eagles with Foles, Giants with Hostetler, Washington with Doug Williams, or Raiders with Jim Plunkett. Stidham may have needed some more time, and it just wasn't the right time for the Broncos. Now, fortunately, though, come next week or next year, they can come back with Bo Nix healthy and try to give it another run next year. They still, they play their cards right during the offseason. They'll still have a strong enough roster to contend next year. So I give the Broncos credit on a great run. I don't think anyone expected them to have home field advantage going into the season, so I'll give the Broncos props on that. And for the Patriots, say what you want to say. Yeah, I know it's kind of an ugly run. The Patriots did not look that great in the playoffs, but they found a way to make it to the Super Bowl. Say what you want to say about the run. Say what you want to say. They had the privilege of playing a battered Chargers O-line. They played against C.J. Stroud, who looked like Rex Grossman on the Bears. And yes, that is true. All the weather and Jarrett Stidham over Bo Nix, and those are factors. But the Patriots found a way to get to the Super Bowl. Bottom line, they went from being one of the worst teams in the league over the past couple seasons to, in Drake May's second year, with Mike Vrabel's first season as their head coach, making it to Super Bowl 60. You got to respect that no matter what. And so shout out to the Patriots and shout out to Mike Vrabel for completing this quick turnaround. I mean, looking back in hindsight, they should have just hired Mike Vrabel in the 2024 offseason to succeed Belichick instead of Gerard Mayo for a year. But hey, I guess the Patriots lived and learned. They got Mike Vrabel, and ultimately it worked out. Patriots are Super Bowl bound with the opportunity to get their 7th ring in franchise history and officially become the NFL's First Order. For those of you that don't know, that's a Star Wars reference. First Order are the sequels to the Empire and the original trilogy, because we made the Empire Patriots joke during the Belichick Brady years, but that's beside the point. The point is, Drake May went from actually being a fan at Santa Clara for Super Bowl 50. He was a Carolina Panthers fan at the time when the Panthers played the Broncos, to now being in the Super Bowl as a starter for the Patriots in only his second season. So congratulations to the New England Patriots for getting it done that way. Awesome. Great turnaround, though, too, for Mike Vrabel, because I honestly thought going into the season, at best, maybe Patriots would be like 6 wins, maybe middle of the first round with their first-round draft pick at best. Instead, they're going to Super Bowl 60. So I give them a ton of credit for this turnaround. And they certainly proved me and a lot of other critics wrong that thought, okay, maybe Drake May will be better, but they're not quite ready yet. Oh, they're in the Super Bowl, so I can't say anything now. I can eat my words on what I thought during the offseason. So congrats to the Patriots, and we'll talk more about their odds in the Super Bowl. But first, we got to talk about the NFC Championship game. We'll start off with this. The irony is that in Seattle, Washington, a place which is historically known for dreary, rainy weather, the weather actually ended up being beautiful out there. It was actually one of the most beautiful places weather-wise in the country on Sunday, when the majority of the country is getting hit by winter storms. Who would have thought? Seattle, where it's known to rain, actually ended up having good weather for football. But fortunately, that's a good thing, because it made the game a lot more exciting and a lot more interesting to watch. With all due respect to the Patriots and Broncos, this was a lot more fun to watch. And it was what we thought would be an offensive battle. And as far as the offenses go, look, the Seahawks set the tone right away. Their first offensive drive, 7 plays, go down the field, touchdown, Kenneth Walker, 2-yard gain after Sam Darnold had a few big passes, one 51-yarder to Rashid Shaheed, then a 16-yarder to JSN, and that pretty much set up the 2-yard run by Kenneth Walker to get the Seahawks on the board first and set the tone for their offense for the remainder of the game. Then you did have the Rams bounce back with a field goal. Seahawks bounced back with a field goal of their own. Rams started the second quarter with a field goal. And then after a 3-and-out by the Seahawks, Rams take over, go up 13-10. And this continued to set the tone for the rest of the game, man. And you had, and then you had a lot of back and forth in this one. You had 3 lead changes throughout this one. Rams took the lead. Seahawks took the lead. Then the Rams took the lead. Then when the Seahawks took the lead, 17-13 late in the second quarter to go back in front on that 6-play drive. Then ultimately was capped up with Darnold, 42-yard pass to JSN, 13-yard pass to Holane, if I'm pronouncing that right, followed by a 14-yarder to JSN to score the go-ahead touchdown that would ultimately keep the Seahawks in the driver's seat the rest of the game. And then you started off, but there were a few crucial plays that played a role in this one. Even for the Rams, as great as their offense won. We got one of them. We got a fumble, or we got a muff punt that set the Seahawks to recover in Rams territory, and all it took was a touchdown pass from Sam Darnold to Bobo. And man, say what you want to say about Darnold, but in this game, he proved himself. And this was definitely the more fun game. It came down late in the game, but ultimately there's one play in the fourth quarter that sticks out above all. It's actually not an offensive play. It's a defensive play that came on fourth down late in the game. You guys probably know which play I'm talking about if you watch the game. The incomplete pass on fourth down in the fourth quarter that ended the Rams' fairy tale game-winning drive on that 14-play drive, ended with the turnover and downs. And the Seahawks ultimately hold on. They stop the Rams' attempt at the comeback on 4th and 4 at the Seahawks 6. And the Seattle Seahawks ultimately move on to Super Bowl 60. And we're getting a rematch of Super Bowl 49, 11 years later. But this time around, it's going to be much different. But before we get into the Super Bowl 60 preview, let's start off with this. Let's talk about Sam Darnold first, because going into the playoffs, I mean, every team had its strengths and weaknesses. It was pretty wide open. But for the Seahawks, their big question was, and I said this both on the 3-Point Blitz and NFL Pick'ems with Agent Warrior, that their biggest weakness was going to be their potentially Sam Darnold. I thought Sam Darnold might be the Achilles heel that ended up hurting them, but actually not. Sam Darnold, come NFC Championship time, he was good enough. He did what he needed to do. He threw for 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. He only got sacked 3 times, had just a few yards shy of 350 passing on the day, and ultimately it was good enough for the Seattle Seahawks to clinch Super Bowl 60 in their 4th Super Bowl berth in franchise history. And so I got to give Sam Darnold credit for this. But then yesterday I noticed I was eating breakfast and I was looking up at ESPN. Stephen A. and then we're talking about the battle that it was pretty much their entire coverage was the battle of the quarterbacks. Now, I didn't listen to the whole thing, but because I was out in public eating. I was out in public for breakfast. They had the TV on in the background. I could see, but I noticed they were talking about the quarterbacks the entire time. First discussion, who do you trust more between Sam Darnold and Drake May? Then the second discussion was, did Sam Darnold do enough to prove people wrong? Stephen A. Smith said yes. But here's the thing I noticed. Everyone's talking about the quarterbacks. Now, I get it with the quarterbacks. Quarterback is the most important position. It's the lead position in football. But you got to also realize, too, NFL rosters contain 53 players. The starting quarterback is not the only person on the roster. There's 52 other players on the team as well. Now, I know not all 52 players take a snap each game, but there are enough players on the roster where you need more than just a quarterback to win. And you look at Sam Darnold's case as a perfect example. Early in his career with the Jets, obviously that wasn't enough. It looked like early on Sam Darnold was going to be at best, average quarterback at best. Those first couple seasons with the Jets. I mean, and plus, to be fair, he had no offensive line to help at all. He got sacked at least 30 times in all 3 of his seasons with the Jets. And, his last season there, he was dreadful. He was 9 TDs to 11 picks. And then his 1 year with the Panthers, his 1 year as nearly full year as the starter, 9 TDs to 13 INTs. And then Darnold started 22 season as Baker Mayfield's backup. Now, in his time as 6 starts in his final season with the Panthers, he did have more TDs to INTs. He played respectable that final year in Carolina, considering he didn't really have much of a team around him. But then, San Fran, he sat behind Brock Purdy for a year. And then all of a sudden in Minnesota was when the first time we saw Sam Darnold truly shine. With Kevin O'Connell as his head coach, with Justin Jefferson, with a solid run game, with TJ Hawkinson, all of a sudden, the Minnesota Vikings, Sam Darnold and the Vikings actually made a Pro Bowl. He had 35 touchdown passes in a season, and it goes to show you that it takes more than just a quarterback for a team to succeed. Then he has the flame out on the wild card. You flash forward one season to Seattle. He only has 25 TDs, the 14 picks, but you also had over 4,000 passing yards, and you have JSN, Rashid Shaheed, Kenneth Walker as running back. You had an excellent defense. All of a sudden, you see the team success, increased. Darnold gets to play for a team with home field advantage in the playoffs. And then in the conference championship game, Darnold plays to this point, arguably the best game of his career. And the Seahawks are going to the Super Bowl, which shows you that despite all the attention we give the quarterbacks, and in some ways we are conditioned to talk about football as battle of the quarterbacks. By the way, ESPN, Fox Sports, FSN, CBS Sports, whatever sports networks you talk about, Comcast Sports, your local teams, they always build football as a battle of the quarterbacks. And sometimes we as fans get conditioned to go along with it. But as we see through Sam Darnold's story, it's not just the quarterback, it's the team. And I look at the Patriots and Seahawks as teams. I know which team I trust more. But before we get into Super Bowl 60 mini preview, going to take a quick break. I will be right back. Stay tuned. We're going to talk a little bit about Super Bowl 60. So stay tuned. Your boy will be right back. All right, folks, I'm back from the quick break. Now, let's dive right into it. So we talked about the Pro Bowl. We talked about the conference championship games. Now, that brings us to this. Super Bowl 60. The NFC champion Seattle Seahawks, led by Sam Darnold on the comeback. You're also talking Kenneth Walker, JSN, Rashid Shaheed, who was an excellent pickup at the trade deadline during the season. You also have a solid Seahawks defense. You got Kobe with a C, Bryant. And by the way, well, I know this all subject, but rest in peace to the Mamba. Yesterday was the 6-year anniversary. I did a little tribute on my channel, a little pick tribute. I might put the link to that before it's over if you guys want to check that out. But you got Kobe with the C, Bryant. DeMarcus Lawrence, who's finally getting to experience true team success, much like DeMarcus Ware when he left the Cowboys and got to experience the Broncos Super Bowl 50 ride. DeMarcus Lawrence is doing something similar. He gets to experience a Super Bowl post-Cowboys. You got Devin Witherspoon, who helped break up the final pass on that long drive by the Rams and helped the Seahawks seal the deal. You got Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy. You got a nice, solid all-around core there. Ernest Jones the fourth. I mean, that's the nice part about the Seahawks. You got the perfect blend of veterans with guys like Jones, Lawrence, and Leonard Williams, but you also have young pieces, too, in there as well. You got younger players like Devin Witherspoon, who's in his third season in the league. You got guys like Josh Jobe in his fourth season, who's also a nice... You got other guys there, too, like Byron Murphy, who's only in his second year, as well as the veterans like DeMarcus Lawrence and Ernest Jones, who add the experience and leadership factor to the locker room. You got a nice all-around team there. Cruise their way through the NFC with a fresh voice in the locker room and a fresh face at quarterback replacing Geno Smith. Because last year the Seahawks were kind of on the cusp. They almost won the division, but they fell just short. The Rams beat them out. They just missed the playoffs. But they parted ways with Geno Smith. Got Sam Darnold, which I admit at the time I was a little skeptical of. But Sam Darnold proved that his 1 year with the Vikings was not a fluke, and that with the right team around him, he's actually a serviceable quarterback. And then you got the New England Patriots, the first order of the NFL. And that'll be the last of the Star Wars jokes. But no offense to Star Wars if he does stop by in the stream, referring to the YouTuber. But hey, you got the New England Patriots now. Second-year quarterback Drake May put up a strong argument for regular season MVP. It's going to come close between him and Matthew Stafford in the votes. You got Rondé Moore Stevenson. Now we see what he can do with a better team around him. He's always been a good back, but now with a good team, he's actually doing something. You got a solid receiving core with Hunter Henry, still one of the best tight ends in the league. Stephon Diggs, who may not be what he was during the Minneapolis Miracle run, but still a solid player. DeMario Pop Douglas, still a solid option. Former Eagle Matt Collins, who's actually proven to still be a pretty respectable role player in the passing game as well. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you got Christian Gonzalez, who's arguably the last great Belichick draft pick. He's actually turned out to do pretty well. Marcus Jones, defensive back, 2022, he's turned into a decent player. I guess for a lot of these Patriots players in the later Belichick years, I guess it was just a thing where Belichick's voice and his coaching style kind of was dated, and they needed a fresh voice in the locker room, and that ended up being Mike Vrabel. But now you're starting to see guys like Christian Gonzalez from Belichick's later drafts actually turned pretty solid. Milton Williams, who the Patriots acquired during the offseason, he's turned out to be a pretty solid piece for them as well. So you got two teams with solid on both sides of the ball in this one. And throughout, and particularly for the New England Patriots, their defense has really stepped up in the playoffs and really helped them out, getting multiple sacks in the opening round against Justin Herbert. Yes, it was against the depleted Los Angeles Chargers, but hey, they took advantage of their opportunity. They helped out. 4 picks on C.J. Grossman. I mean, Rex Stroud. I mean, C.J. Stroud in the second round. And then, whether you would say it was a combination of the Patriots defense or the Broncos offense struggling or the weather conditions or a little bit of the three, they did enough to hold the Broncos to 7 points. They kept them in check after giving up a touchdown the opening drive. And ultimately, they made it to the Super Bowl. So now, that leads us to the potential possibilities with the two teams being matched head-to-head. Now, at my initial thought, I'm leaning toward the Seattle Seahawks. Now, to be fair, it's only been 2 days since the conference championships, and now we're at the point where I'm leaning toward the Seahawks, but we still got a full week to go. At least a full week and more to go before we actually get to see it play out. But I'm kind of leaning toward the Patriots the Seahawks as of now. And while the New England Patriots have had a phenomenal run, Drake May's really stepped up potential MVP form. You got Rondé Moore Stevenson, still a good number 1. Trayvon Henderson's a solid number 2 back, only in his rookie year, with the potential to get better or even maybe become a number 1 back. But you got the New England Patriots who are now going against the Seattle Seahawks. Here's 2 things. Number 1, you look at the Patriots defense. They haven't gone against a team as strong with the chemistry of the Seahawks yet. Because Seattle's really is excellent on both sides of the ball. They got talent on both sides. Now, if you, like I said, you look at the playoff run, reiterate, battered Chargers offensive line. Seahawks have a stronger and healthier O-line. That's not going to be as easy. Sam Darnold, as we've seen in the playoffs particularly from the game 2 days ago, is better in the playoffs than C.J. Stroud. So they're not going to have as easy a time getting turnovers against Darnold as they did C.J. Stroud. Now, do I think the Patriots could get a turnover or 2? Possibly, but it's not going to be as easy. And you're not going to have the same weather conditions you had in Denver either to help out. Now, Seahawks, much different story. We haven't seen the Patriots go against the likes of JSN or Rashid Shaheed or try to shut down Kenneth Walker. This is clearly their toughest test. Seattle's clearly the better all-around team in this case. I mean, I've seen the memes joking about the New England Patriots run to the Super Bowl and how they're kind of like whatchamacallit. They're kind of like, it was a meme from The Simpsons where Homer Simpson entered a boxing tournament and he was getting the luckiest wins in the world that he had no business getting. There was a meme making out the Patriots playoff run to be similar to that, where he's just getting wins he had no business getting. They had no business getting. But it just seems, Seahawks are definitely the more complete team. They've beaten both the 49ers and the Rams. They're 2 division rivals to get here. They're the more battle-tested team. And to me, they're ready for this stage. I kind of for a minute drew some parallels to the 85 Patriots that went to Super Bowl 20 against the Chicago Bears, where the Patriots made it, but they were the more incomplete team going against that Chicago Bears team with that absolutely phenomenal defense. You still had, I believe, Walter Payton was still there. And I know I'm going way back, 40 years ago to Super Bowl 20, and we're approaching Super Bowl 60. But I do see some parallels here where, clearly the AFC team, in this case, the Patriots, is outmatched in this case. The Bears ended up winning that game 46-10. Now, granted, I don't think the Seahawks are going to beat them that bad because Drake May, in his era, is still a better quarterback than, who was it for the Patriots? Was it Bobby Eason was his name or something? I mean, yes, you did have, Bobby Easton, who Patriots were kind of lucky he was even there. But in this case, yeah, Drake May is a better quarterback than what the Patriots had in Super Bowl 20 all those years ago. But I'll say in this case, yeah, even better than Tony Easton. That's who it was. He's better than Tony Easton by a mile. So I got this. I don't think it's going to be that bad, but I still got the Seahawks as the better all-around team headed into this one. Because what's going to happen when Drake May, because even we saw throughout the playoffs, against the Houston Texans defense, who were one of the better defenses, they did not look that, Drake May did not play that great. Because honestly, Drake May, while he has a case for regular season MVP, look at his playoff run on the offensive side. He has not played that great for New England. I mean, name me one like really strong performance in the wild card divisional or conference championship Drake May had. I can't really think of one. I mean, the AFC Championship game, I'll give him some slack for having under 100 yards passing because the weather was atrocious and it was hard for either offense to get something going. I'll cut Drake May some slack for that game right there. But when it comes down to it, they did not have a great run, particularly performance-wise by Drake May. Now, against Seahawks, you're talking about, like I said, Sam Darnold, they had a much better run. And how's Drake May, who struggled so far in the playoffs, going to fare against that Seahawks defense? I mean, you saw Brock Purdy kind of struggled against that. I mean, yeah, Matthew Stafford had a pretty good game, but you saw Brock Purdy struggle against them, who isn't the most complete quarterback, but how's that going to pair out for? Yeah, I could see this kind of being a little bit similar. I don't see Drake May playing that great. I could see him having possibly one, maybe two turnovers in this one. And you saw the Seahawks shut down Christian McCaffrey. I don't know about Rondé Moore-Stevenson. Yeah, I'm leaning much more toward the Seahawks in this matchup here because they're clearly the more complete team. So I don't think we're going to get that great of a game. But I think we're going to get, what we are probably going to get is the Seattle Seahawks now joining the Philadelphia Eagles, Los Angeles Rams, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the two-time Super Bowl champion club is what I'm looking at most likely happening. And yes, there are a few other teams, a team or two I may have forgot that had 2 Super Bowls, but I'm talking about teams in the past decade that secured their second Super Bowl win. And that includes the Eagles, Bucs, and Rams. So I could see the Seahawks joining that club here, winning this against the Patriots. Because this is not like the last time these two teams played in Super Bowl 49. This is not the Tom Brady, LeGarrette Blount led Julian Edelman, Rob Gronkowski team with Malcolm Butler there to play the hero. You had Darrelle Revis was there that season. This is not, beast mode, which I still don't get that play call, but hey, that's done. That's done in history. But I could say this. Man, I mean, I think as of right now, I got the Seahawks winning this game, probably by 10 or more points at least. I could see that happening right here. So I see the Seattle Seahawks winning this game and moving on to their second Super Bowl win. But we still got a whole week out. We got the Pro Bowl next week, and enough said about that. So we're going to have a full week to wait. I'm thinking, just to give you guys a heads up, I might end up skipping Super Bowl. I might end up skipping the 3-point blitz next week. We might wait till after the Super Bowl to do episode 46 and just talk about the Super Bowl then, because there's not really going to be a whole lot going on next week. But I haven't made my decision yet, but just a heads up there, we might take a break from the 3-point blitz next week. But because really, what's episode 46, if we do it next week, going to be? Just more talk about the Super Bowl. Kind of already did that today. So, I mean, we do have head coach vacancies going on right now. A few of them were filled. we might see some more get filled. But to me, I don't want to do the 3-point blitz unless we have enough content to talk about. I feel like if we take a break next week, we'll have more to talk about. So probably we'll save episode 46 till after the Super Bowl, recap the game, and talk about any head coach vacancies or any big NBA news that's come out then. But before we go, speaking of the NBA, we are going to switch helms to the NBA just a little bit. There's a few things I want to talk about before we move on. And we had a big jersey retirement last week, which I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. And that, I think you guys probably already know who I'm going to talk about. The color change I'm about to do with the banner might give it away for you. If you haven't already guessed, yep, we talking about the Chicago Bulls retiring Derrick Rose's jersey. Hey, so, well, hey, so with this, we'll say congratulations to Derrick Rose on earning the honor of having his jersey retired by the Chicago Bulls. So he had his number 1 retired. And in Derrick Rose's case, man, it's kind of like a bittersweet moment seeing Derrick Rose's jersey retired by the Bulls. Because we know that D Rose was a 3-time All-Star, youngest MVP in NBA history, which still holds to this date. An accomplishment he achieved with the Chicago Bulls. And he also won Rookie of the Year with them as well. So Derrick Rose had himself a respectable career, but ultimately it's one of those what could have beens. One of the biggest what could have beens in NBA history, because almost all those accomplishments, they all happened within the first 4 seasons of his career. You know, you had 3 of his first 4 seasons resulted in an All-Star nod. Youngest MVP during his 3rd season in the league. But then his 4th season happened and it started, the Bulls got to the playoffs. They were the number 1 seed. And then we all know what happened in game 1 that series against the Philadelphia 76ers with 12. They were late in the game. Bulls were up by 12. Rose was trying to get a triple-double, and then he tore out his ACL on his left knee, and that was pretty much the beginning of the end of Derrick Rose as a superstar. Now, to be fair, though, Derrick Rose's career wasn't over after that. I mean, but as far as him being an MVP and being a superstar, that was the end of it, which is where we get into the what could have been aspect. Now, to be fair, Derrick Rose he still had his flashes and moments with the Chicago Bulls in that 2014-2015 season. Derrick Rose he appeared in 51 games, and he was healthy for the playoffs that season. He helped lead them to a first-round series win against the Milwaukee Bucks. Derrick Rose in that series against the Bucks, against the young Giannis-led Bucks, he did average about 21 points per game. And they did in the second round, even though they fell short against the LeBron Kyrie-led Cavs, they did actually go up 2-1 in that series. And Derrick Rose did hit a buzzer-beater 3-pointer to win that game in game 3 to put the Bulls up 2-1. And that was kind of his last memorable playoff run. He did come back for the 2015-2016 season. D Rose was limited in action that season, and unfortunately, that was it for him as a Chicago Bull. Now, the rest of his career, he did have flashes and moments. Derrick Rose did end up, most notably Halloween night 2018, he had 50 points in a Minnesota Timberwolves uniform. Some of us joked that D Rose dressed as his MVP self for that night. And ultimately, it was Derrick Rose had that great moment. And there was a game they played in that run with him with the T-Wolves against the Bulls, the United Center, where he dropped 24 points and he got MVP chance. And even Derrick Rose, though, hey, through the rest of his career, even in those later years where he was a role player, when he did play for teams against the Bulls, the United Center, he would still occasionally get the MVP chance from the Chicago fans. So ultimately, Derrick Rose's career, it didn't pan out to what it looked like it was going to be early in his career. The injuries slowed him down. But Derrick Rose still had a good career. He still won an MVP, made multiple All-Stars, and had his jersey retired by the Bulls. That's still a nice run in the NBA. So Derrick Rose rightfully had his jersey retired. He got greeted by a few of his former teammates, Taj Gibson, Joakim Noah, in a private ceremony on the court at the United Center the day of. So I'd say congrats to Derrick Rose on a good career. Sorry that it didn't end the way it should have or that we were expecting it to end, but Derrick Rose still made a lot of money and still had a successful NBA career and is still one of the best Chicago Bulls players in their franchise history. If NBA teams decide to create their Ring of Honor like NFL teams do, you know D Rose will definitely get in the Bulls Hall of Fame for sure. So salute to Derrick Rose. And there is one more thing I want to talk about. NBA-wise, we're going to briefly acknowledge one of the all-time great players. Unfortunately, his 6-year anniversary of his passing happened yesterday. I'm talking about Lakers legend, Kobe Bean Bryant. So Kobe Bryant, we've talked about Kobe a lot, but why not talk about it while it's still fresh in our mind? Now, here's a guy in Kobe Bryant. We know about all the on-the-court accolades. You know, countless all-star appearances, 81-point game, numerous 60-point games, 5 finals wins, finals MVPs, regular season MVPs, clutch shots. We know all about that with Kobe Bryant. But what we don't talk about as much is his presence off the court. Man, because now along with being a phenomenal NBA player and one of the greatest basketball players ever to play the game on planet Earth, Kobe Bryant was also a brilliant mind too. He was a guy who spoke multiple languages as well, fluent in English, fluent in Italian, even fluent in Spanish. So here was a bilingual guy that was fluent in multiple languages. And some people talk about saying that if Kobe weren't an athlete, he could have excelled as an entrepreneur or other forms of life outside the sports world. And I absolutely agree that he could have. Kobe Bryant could have very easily excelled outside of basketball too. Here was a guy, even though he didn't go to college, he's clearly one of the smartest minds of a professional athlete that I've seen. And that Mamba mentality that Kobe Bryant, he lived life like there was no tomorrow. That was one of his biggest things, though. Like, he always took the attitude of, like, hey, look, there's no time, there's no tomorrow. Let me go make the most of my life while I'm here. And ultimately, that's how Kobe Bryant lived. From his insane work ethic, his willingness to play through injuries, we've seen all. Kobe Bryant would step up, shoot at the free throw line. His willingness to step up and shoot. Remember, he shot the 2 free throws after tearing his meniscus. And he went out there and played that game. You also said, no, the 81 points. It's the insane work ethic that Kobe displayed. Made him as great as he was. A guy that some people thought of maybe as, at best, a role player. Kobe Bryant excelled that. And he ended up being a lot more than that. So if we're ever going to learn anything from Kobe Bryant is work ethic can make a difference. You can't always, and there's one Kobe quote that was phenomenal that said, you can't always control everything around you, but the one thing I can always control is my work ethic. If there's one life lesson we can learn from Kobe is, we can always control our work ethic. We can control our own behavior, how we respond, how hard we work to get things done. Our own behavior. Kobe Bryant took it upon himself to learn multiple languages. He took it upon himself to show up every day to practice, wake up early, and go to work. he didn't believe, he didn't, when most NBA players wanted to go out to the club and act and party, Kobe was out. He was out working. He was out working, getting ready, working on his game. And ultimately, that's one thing we can learn. If we could just all sometimes embrace the uncommon ways, embrace uncommon practices, like getting up early and working, sometimes that can make all the difference in the world. And Kobe, that uncommon work ethic, ultimately outworked so many people, man. So we'll say this, rest in peace to the Mamba. Thank you for being inspiration to all of us. There's so many great stories of Kobe we could talk about. I'm just going to talk about one. The one that I know that sticks out the most is the Redeem team. When a whole team went out to the club, Kobe decided to be the outsider and not go. And as the team was coming back from Club Tristis, as told by Carlos Boozer on the Redeem Team documentary, guess who was in the lobby on his way to the gym? Kobe Bryant. And that had a huge domino effect because even Carmelo, when interviewed, said after that, the next day, I think you had LeBron and D-Wade, it might have been, joined him. And then by the end of the week, the whole team's joining Kobe. Is like that whole team seeing Kobe's dedication and work ethic inspired the rest of the team to follow suit. And then the entire team was on Kobe's schedule. And sometimes people lead through their actions, not even through words. And that's the one story about leadership from Kobe that sticks out the most to me, man. So rest in peace to the Mamba. And real quickly, I do want to do just a small silent tribute. I got a picture. It's a tribute to the victims. So I'm going to share that real quickly. So this is going to be a tribute to not just Kobe, but all the victims of that helicopter crash. So we're going to have a brief moment of silence real quick. I know this can be a somber note, but here's a real quick tribute. So rest in peace to all the victims there. And hopefully their family members have found some solace in the years since and have found some way to heal from the tragedy. But remember, folks, life is short. We never know how much longer we have left. And if we're going to follow one thing we could follow from Kobe Bryant, live each day like it's your last. Because you never know how much longer you really have. Nobody saw that helicopter crash coming in. Well, now we know what happened. So remember, folks, live each day like it's your last. Take advantage of each opportunity you have to make something happen. Don't pass up an opportunity for something in life, whether that be a promotion, a new job, an experience with family, an opportunity to get married, an opportunity to become a parent. Don't pass up on going to your kid's graduation or pass up on attending that anniversary dinner because you never know if it's going to be your last full day on earth. So with that being said, before we close this thing out, start little G Griffiths comes in. Eagles need a new offensive coordinator. Yeah, absolutely. Because we're still waiting on that search, man. We know that we tried to go for the Cowboys offensive coordinator, but Jerry Jones decided to reject the offer. We were trying to go for their offense. Can't remember what's his name off the top of my head. Because I know we were looking. So the Philadelphia Eagles, we were looking, because with Cowboys, one of our coaches joined them just recently as the divisional. It was Clayton Adams, the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys. He was going to go for an interview potentially, and we had an opportunity to hire him as our new offensive coordinator, which based off what he did with Dallas, despite their lack of team success, Clayton did a pretty solid job with the Cowboys offense considering. And I would have loved to have seen what he could do with the Eagles because we have a pretty good group of talent around us too. We saw Kevin Patullo drastically underachieve for what we had around us, and ultimately it didn't work out. But now if we could get a better offensive coordinator, it would help out. Now we know that Brian Duvall's out the picture. He went to the Titans. Mike McDaniel, Chargers vacancy. We tried to go get our guy from the Cowboys, but that didn't work out. Cowboys won't let it happen. So sometimes such is life. But ultimately, at the end of the day, give me 1 second. All right, so yeah, I'll say this, man. So we just got to wait and see what's going to happen. So for everyone that tuned in, I want to say thank you, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. So episode 46 of the 3-Point Blitz will be next week. Will not be next week, but it'll be the week after the Super Bowl. So it'll be February 10th. We'll be doing episode 46 of the 3-Point Blitz. But in the meantime, as far as live streams go, later tonight at 8 p.m., we got Pick'ems with Agent Warrior X. It will be us talking about the conference championships and doing a little mini preview of Super Bowl 60, talking about the conference championships, maybe going through some Super Bowl memories later tonight. So you can catch me and Agent Warrior X talking about that at 8 p.m. on the Hardcore Sports Network. So make sure you tune in. So with that being said, guys, thanks for tuning in to episode 45 of the 3-Point Blitz. Arku, Mitch, Little G Griffith, thank you for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Hope you're safe wherever you're at. Hopefully the snowstorm didn't get to you too badly. If you did unfortunately lose power, hopefully you've regained it now, or hopefully you do be regaining power. But whatever you do out there, stay safe, man, because this winter weather is no joke. So with that being said, folks, thank you. Have a great rest of your day. If you don't catch me later tonight on the Pick'ems. And so, yeah, we'll be doing that later. So before then, though, I just real quickly do want to give a brief acknowledgement. So do real quickly want to share the link to Pick'ems in case anyone wants to come in. So in case anyone wants to catch it later tonight, I'll share that. So yeah, with that being said, guys, have a great rest of your day. Until next time, it's your boy Nicky Stees signing off. It doesn't look like I'm going to get to it, but yeah, with that being said, have a great day, guys. Catch y'all later.
I could see at least two teams missing out with a winning record. Houston and Kansas City.
Really, it's going to be a battle of the two offenses in this case. So I predict a high-scoring game.
This is what they get for firing Brian Flores. You remember that 2021 season when the Dolphins won 7 in a row with Brian Flores just to get booted out of the playoffs and then terminated on Black Monday. Why would they even do that?
Offseason in terms of talent-wise, when they got Tyreek Hill, so they had the right talent the following year. If they had the exact same offseason with Brian Flores as the coach, how much different would have it gone? I don't know if we necessarily would have been way different if Brian Flores. It would have been better.
It would have been different with Brian Flores because he has a winning culture defense, but the offensive was pretty much god-awful.
Back in, like, say, Madden, the original Madden 25 franchise mode, it would have been generated during one of the off seasons.
you get a random like Kurt Warner coming out of retirement or Ray Lewis coming out of retirement storyline.